Good morning, depending on where you're at or listening to us. This is the first session of me running a sci-fi PBTA game called Impulse Drive. It's one of several of them, meaning sci-fi games that are out there. And this is what the cover looks like. But uh, we are trying to run this in the Coriolis setting from Free League. I ran Coriolis a bit last year, and while I really like the setting and I like the details of it, I'm not as fond of the implementation of the core system. I think there's some things that I don't dig as much. So taking it to PBTA loosens some things up, and we'll see whether it works. Impulse Drive is definitely a game that leans towards in its core conception towards Firefly or Dark Matter or those kinds of stories. However, we saw Rich last year, and I think this year as well, use it to do Star Wars games. So it has a lot of room. I have spent some time tweaking the playbooks to make them fit very specifically with the Coriolis setting. And our group is playing with a character keeper that I've done that has all of those tweaks on it, has that built in. So if you know Impulse Drive and you hear us talking and saying different playbooks or different things, it's because of that. So those are the changes that we are implementing. Um, so before I go too much further, this is part of the Gauntlet Hangouts. The Gauntlet is an online gaming community that you can find out more about at gauntlet-rpg.com. We have a Patreon that supports that project, gets early access into game sign up. It also has a zine that's associated with it on a monthly basis and has multiple podcasts. That's sort of where it started, was with podcasts and then getting people together to play. But you can check that out again at gauntlet-rpg.com. My name is Lowell, he, him, and I have three veteran players who I've played with multiple times before. And we are going to kind of jump into the deep end. So, just to give you a sense, Coriolis is definitely a game that wears its uh, Arab, Islamic, that whole set of themings on it. It is in some ways a little bit like how Fading Suns did a kind of high medieval, um, but it steers away from the religious content of the setting, rather of the Islamic world, and creates its own particular setting to go with that, where we have the worship of the icons and so on. We will dig into that as we go along. This is a space game. It's pretty open. So normally I would do a cats where I'd go, this is what we're going to be doing. All I can say is we're going to be playing in space in the Coriolis setting, and I'm going to let the players uh, 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 make the decision about what is going on with that. So what I want to mention, though, on channel before we get into the character creation process here, is that our basic safety tool is going to be the X card. We have that as a tool for safety. Again, that affects tone, affects content, affects objectionable material, anything like that. We can X card that either with physical sign or saying that out loud. As well, once we get into the character creation process, while you're making your choices in your playbooks, I'm going to add a new tab into the character keeper. Stephen saw this the other night. That will have a checklist for lines and veils. It'll be a list of potential items. Again, lines are hard line things we don't want to see in the game. Like for me, torture, because it's reprehensible and it doesn't work. Both of these things, I always put a hard line on that. Uh, so it'll be check boxes by that. And then veils are things that if that material comes up in play, we will fade to black on it. That tab will be in there, and you can do that at your leisure. You don't have to identify yourself, don't have to say anything. You can just make those checks, and at a certain point, we will stop in and we will say, okay, here are our lines and veils so far. we can add on to that as things occur. There's also space to add in new items as we go along. So I'm going to take just a second. I want you to take a look at the Coriolis Character Keeper, and I want to have you look at the playbooks. Then I want to talk about what you're imagining for what kind of play you want to have, and then maybe what kind of playbooks you're looking at. So let me give you just a minute to do that. I have to answer a chat here. So Coriolis has some room to play in. The groups that they have in the core book, the sort of campaign themes that they present are free traders, which include smugglers and haulers, couriers, that kind of thing. Mercenaries, for a very combat heavy game. Explorers, which includes again, prospectors, colonists, correspondents. Agents, which includes detectives, adjudicators, assassins, even archaeologists, I think would fall into that one. And then they have pilgrims, which is more of the space nomads, traveling circus kind of thing. And that's the set that they have in the book. And whatever you think you want to lean into, we'll tailor the ship to that, because Impulse Drive comes with 4 different ships that also set campaign themes, but they're slightly different. So I will tweak those between this session and next. So Stephen, you had expressed a an idea of a mobile goal-oriented premise a la Raiders, chasing MacGuffin, treasure hunters, rebel agents, finding alien weapons, blah, blah, blah. Essentially a long running thing. And I do think that we're definitely going to have because this is part of a Gauntlet quarterly game, we're going to try and have this as a full arc throughout this. Any senses of what you would feel strongly about amongst those 5? I mean, is it detectives? Is it criminals? Is what would you like? Um, with what Stephen's put on the table, Patrick, any thoughts?
Um, I I really like the like artifact hunting sort of idea. It combines both seeing the interesting corners of Coriolis space and also exploring some of the like supernatural mystery nature of the setting both.
Okay.
Um, so I think that sounds super cool.
Yeah.
I forget what the types were. Are they on the
I would put
sheet?
that under agents, a kind of you are or even explorers. I think that we could certainly do that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's sort of the difference between like directed and self-driven agent to explorer.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
Interesting.
So the fuse that you'll probably have is a certain amount of debt that you have to pay off on your ship. Each of the ships in Impulse Drive has a thing that hangs over them and that could be debt, or the other fuse that is possible is nemesis, where you have a rival organization or person that is hot on your heels. And we'll talk about that next time. We can certainly shape that. Sherry, are you good with that concept? Long running, chasing a MacGuffin, space archaeologists.
Yeah, I actually like the thing that we have a rival that we're racing to for
Okay.
whatever it is that we're racing for that thing. Yes.
All right, Stephen, does that square with what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's then, with that in mind, let's take a look at the 7 playbooks that are available. I have renamed them from the original Impulse Drive to the names that are based on the sort of pseudo playbooks they have in Coriolis. I want to talk about what they mean because there's so much to read there. It may take you a sec to kind of get okay what's going on. Um, our Trailblazer is our sort of captain, our Mal Reynolds. It combines a little bit of pure luck and talking and getting out of situations and a little bit of force. Our operative character is our sneaky, stealthy person. They can have a background in having been part of an agency, or they might just be a thief, that kind of thing. Our scientist represents any kind of sciences. It can represent archaeology. It can represent physics. It can represent occult studies, all of that kind of thing. The preacher is a religious character and has a desire to spread the faith of the icons. The negotiator is our face person. That's originally the scoundrel. So while they're the face, they're also a little bit of the Han Solo-y face. You can kind of tweak it that way. So the face person doesn't necessarily mean that you're pure talk. You have some options there as well. The mystic is our character that has strange powers. They have psionics, effectively psychic powers, things like that. These are not respected in the setting. People are afraid of them. There is this sense of the dark being out there. Then the dark is a thing that can corrupt people and does cause physical changes. It's something that happens in the space between the stars. Many people believe that psychics that have started to arise are tainted by the dark. So someone who is a mystic definitely will have to be a little more cautious about how they use their abilities. But in the original book, these are very modest, sort of passive things. These are a little more Jedi-like in this version, just based on Impulse Drive. I know Patrick had done the Mystic last time, so I wanted to point out that it's slightly different. And then the soldier is what would be called the war horse in the original Impulse Drive. So if you just want to blow shit up, that is the playbook for that. It is very much kind of over the top in that way. So with that in mind, Stephen, do you have one or two options that you're thinking about amongst those playbooks?
Right. Well, it sounds like we'll probably want to have a scientist in the crew, and I don't necessarily want to be a scientist, but I want there to be a scientist among us.
That seems reasonable.
And I mean, I could, depending on what other people pick, I've got several possibilities. I'm still thinking.
Okay, so Patrick, do you have a thought or two that you've kind of narrowed it down to?
I like the Mystic, and I'd be curious to see some of the changes to it. But I also think the Scientist looks cool.
Okay. Sherry, what are you thinking?
I personally would love to be the scientist to Patrick's Mystic. I think.
Sweet.
Yes.
All right, I'll take the Trailblazer then.
Awesome.
Okay.
Nice. We have a captain to keep us on course.
Yes. So when we take a look at this, you will see that we have Character Creation tab 1. And that includes the numbers that you're going to assign to your approaches. Approaches for me, how do I put this? I always associate them with Fate Accelerated and the idea that you can choose your approach depending on thing. In this game, just realize that approaches are set. Like each move has a particular approach that it is used with. It does define sort of the style of your play, but they are hard fixed to the different moves. So on tab 1, we've got the scores that you're going to assign. We've got then a box that has a set of 4 relationship picks, and then also what they call hooks. And so the top 4 are the relationship picks, and then the bottom 4 are the hooks after that. We'll come back to that, but probably want to do that after you make your move choices and probably after we do the introductions. The gear slots, you're going to start with 3 gear slots, and you're going to go ahead and copy that gear section in that thing over onto your character. If you see something that says a D by it, that means discharge. It means an item that you discharge and then have to kind of reset. You can sometimes it's discharged when used, sometimes it's discharged to get a bonus. So that's just to tell you why we've got those weird letterings there. But those are those sort of backgroundy things. At the bottom, we go down even further. And again, I apologize. Impulse Drive has a lot of gears to it. Okay. At the bottom, you have something called calamities. These are things that will happen when your character builds up too much stress. You can always choose to not take physical harm and instead apply it to stress. Stress is harder to clear. It builds up. And when stress hits a certain level, you'll clear it, but you have to choose one of these calamities. You will see that the last calamity is how your character goes out. Some of these calamities are good. Some of these calamities are bad. But you can see that they're there, and each playbook has a unique set of those. And you will copy that and paste that onto your character. So that's those sort of oddball things. The stuff that is a little more normal for us is we go over to the Creation 2 tab. You will start with, for your playbook, a signature move. For example, the Scientist has Expert. There are some listed examples there. Feel free to change those, Sherry, as you wish. You will then have a background move. Each playbook has a choice of 2, kind of representing 2 different paths. So Sherry could choose to be the academic scientist, or Sherry could choose to be the ship worker kind of character, more the engineering type character. And then after that, you have archetype moves. And let me check. I think that you start with 2, but I need to make sure on that. I think you start with 1 of your archetype moves as well. And those are your classic moves there. You'll notice that some of the moves have discharge written on them as well. That essentially, when you use them, they have to be reset. So with that in mind, does anyone have any questions about that, or should I let you loose on making your characters? Okay, I'm going to let you loose, and if you have questions, go ahead and hit me up. And in the meantime, I'll go and grab that other tab.
Below, under the drop for archetype, you have the old, I think you have the Impulse Drive ones.
Yes, I do. You will have to type that in by hand. I think I meant to get that. Yeah, because I thought that pulled from elsewhere.
Okay.
When Rich sent me this, there was the Impulse Drive sheet wasn't quite done, so I went through and did it, and then I was like, oh, I should make a couple tweaks to make it more Coriolis-y. And I was like, well, if I've started, I might as well do this other part. Oh, and I might as well make up unique calamities. Oh, maybe I should go through and change all the gear to get the names from Coriolis. So what I had planned it to be like maybe an hour or two ended up being 2 days worth of work.
Oops.
I had a couple questions about some of the mystic moves. Speaking
Absolutely.
of changing over wording.
Hit me up.
So on the creation 2, the moves, there's TK Master, which says it requires telekinetic force. Does that just mean the telekinesis power above it?
Yes, that is correct.
And then a couple down on Heart of Glass, when it refers to storm, is that darkness?
That is darkness. Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. I'll change this.
For those of you who know Impulse Drive at home, I'll mention a couple of other changes that I've made besides tweaks to the calamities and the various character things. I have opted not to use the end of session XP where players vote on who was awesome. That's not my favorite approach to play. So we're going to just go with a different set of questions for that. Also, we have added in a new move taken from the original Coriolis. In Coriolis, characters could pray to one of the icons at different points during the game. They sometimes might have a temple within their ship and so on, and that gave them a benefit ongoing for a particular set of moves. To represent that, I've added a commune with the icons move, essentially once per session. When you pray, when you reach out to one of the icons to gain their blessing, you roll with nothing. On 10 plus, you hold 2. On a 7 to 9, you hold 1. And you can spend that hold to gain advantage on the move associated with that icon. And on a 6 minus, the icon's silence is disturbing, and you get disadvantage on that on your next move, not necessarily that one. But I've also got the icons associated with various of the basic moves. Each one has one, except for the Gambler. The Gambler has both Engage and then Motorhead, which is essentially the when you do a move while you're piloting a vehicle move.
So another question about move.
Absolutely.
The Mind Spike move.
Mm-hmm.
It says on a 7 to 9, you only skim their surface thoughts, ask what they're thinking about right now, and their player will give, and then nothing.
Oh, and their player will give an answer, I think, is what that meant. Where the player is also the GM.
Is it a true one? Because that's one of the choices on a 10 plus. I wasn't sure if that carried over.
Let's see here. On a 10 plus. That's an interesting question. Let me look up Mind Spike in the book here and make sure what text I'm missing there.
Cool.
It's a little redundant, actually, in the original text. It says, on a 7 to 9, you only skim their surface thoughts, ask what they're thinking about right now, and the player will give you a true answer. And then spend hold 1 for 1 on the following, and then it has those two options. Oh, so I guess what it is on a 7 to 9, you only get the true answer choice.
Yeah, and it's only like what they're thinking right now, I
Yeah.
think, whereas the 10 plus or the hold could dig something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm sorry, was there any hold on the 7 to 9?
No, it's just that result.
Okay.
I'll drop my Pinterest board in the chat in case anybody needs to hunt a picture down. Oh, nice, Patrick.
Thank you.
So one of the things about this game is that there are some moves that can generate XP, but this is very much an XP on a miss game for getting additional XP. It is a game that uses advantage, disadvantage. Advantage meaning you get an extra die. Disadvantage means you get an extra die. Advantage means you take the two highest. Disadvantage means you take the two lowest. You will have some hooks. Some of those play into particular moves, but in general, the hooks represent some states and effects and things that your character is tied up with. When you act on a hook, you always roll with disadvantage. And the logic of that is that means that you're more likely to fail and more likely to generate XP. It's an interesting choice, and we will see how that plays out. But I just wanted to give you a heads up on why we have the hooks the way they do. Let me give you a couple more minutes, and then we will move to introductions. All set? Okay. Then let's go ahead. By the way, there's a person who goes through my videos and sometimes writes in comments. I've done this several times. Awkward silence ends at X point of time on the first session one to tell people where they need to skip forward to get to the introductions, which I love. So, Stephen, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you tell us about what you're imagining for your character?
All right, I'm playing the Trailblazer archetype, which is basically the ship's captain. The character's name is Nico Jemson. and I chose Stick 2, Volatile 1, Calculating and Stalwart 0, and Weird -1. So I'm imagining him as someone who tries to talk himself out of trouble, but may end up shooting. So could be a Han Solo type. We'll see how it develops.
Okay.
And yeah, and for my work ethic move, I chose ex-agent who once served with an enforcement or legal authority. You know how they operate. I have a feeling that this may also end up being a rival faction. Now that we're chasing some valuable alien artifact. So
That makes sense to me, and we'll figure out exactly what kind of group that is. You get the Pursuivant, which allows you to pick up leads for jobs, and let's see here. What are you imagining for your hooks for your character?
my search for secret, which I assume is the alien artifact, has made me the target of faction, and I am terrible with beer, and always immediately burn through them, buying things, entertaining myself, or giving to charity.
I like that one very much. So, what are you imagining is Nikos's reason for being on a hunt like this? I mean, are they an archaeologist at heart, or do you think that this pursuit that they're on stemmed from some sort of incident?
I feel like he feels like this can actually make a difference. That this can cause a change in society. If we can get some of these, if we can find this artifact, we can wrest some power away from the forces that control everything.
So, would you call him an idealist then?
Yeah, I think he's a bit of an idealist, and that's why he's no longer with the government.
Yeah. So, is that idealism something he's always had and made the mistake of joining up, or is that idealism something that developed in the face of having been in a more cynical organization?
I think it's something that he always had. He was just too idealistic for the corrupt institutions that existed.
So, what kind of social strata do you imagine that he came from? Ground side, raised on a station, from one of the Zenithian families, the more sort of in power noble lines.
I think he's probably like a lower middle class ground side. He's the first member of his family to get into space, and he sort of had a very idealized picture of how much of a meritocracy the society actually was once you got into space. It was like he thought you just need one break and then everything's okay. And he realized, no, it's all about connections. And
how is it that you're the captain of the ship? Is it your ship? Is it one of the other PC's ship? What do you imagine for that?
I think it's my ship. I think it's a smuggler's ship that I bought at a government auction with my retirement payout.
So very, very, very bootstrapped. The illegal things stripped off of it, and you've been rebuilding it since then, kind of thing.
Yes, some of the illegal things have been stripped back into it.
That seems reasonable to me. And in Earth years, about how old are you imagining them?
Late 30s.
Okay. When they go to a station or planet side, I see that as you said, you're bad with beer, with money. Uh, uh, are you? What is the primary thing that we see you spending on when you hit those places?
I think I will mostly spend on parts for the ship.
Okay, that you're a sucker for buying and getting the ship to be better.
Yeah, yeah, and any fancy upgrade, I'm convinced that I'm convinced that like this upgrade to the targeting system will be fantastic. This is exactly what we need, and it really doesn't make much of a difference most of the time. So.
Absolutely, the salespeople are there. They're anxiously awaiting you to tell you about the latest thing that they have, and then you come back and the crew's like, why'd you get these stencils? Okay. I like that. We will come back to you. I will have you. So you have your pursuivant move is your base move. You have the other move, and then I'm going to let you pick one more move from your move list. Though the book doesn't, I want everybody to start with a third move, just because it's more fun that way. All right, that gives me a good sense of that. We're going to come back around to you to ask you about those relationship questions. We'll set that with each of the other two characters, figure that out. Let's come to Patrick. Patrick, tell us about your character.
I would love to if my computer would respond. All right. So my character is Kyrie Al-Dawood, who is the Mystic Playbook. For his background is tragedy. Yeah, tragedy. Which is that he was tested on something was done to you because of your unusual gifts. The process was torturous or mentally and emotionally damaging. And so, yeah, I think his potential for abilities was discovered early on. He was taken by some like secret project program, underground medical religious sort of research. And things were done to him, things were put inside of him, and now he has his belief is that he can feel the darkness between the stars, like his mind is open like a conduit to it. And that means that any sort of like negative emotions or disruption in his normal life leads to just like these uncontrolled phenomena around him. He's got some TK poltergeisty type abilities, but not a lot of real conscious control over it. I think he's been traveling, searching for different ways to control that darkness, to cut himself off from those influences. That's why he's covered in all these various different sacred tattoos in a bunch of different languages, as he's just tried any sort of mental or spiritual path to help himself. And the one sort of trick he's gotten good conscious control over is mind spike, where he can invade someone else's mind and look at their surface thoughts or maybe deeper.
And how does he feel about that? I mean, because that's always one of those things with mental powers is when you're invading someone else's mind, do you feel that it's just natural? Do you feel guilt? What is your reaction to that?
I think it's a little bit of guilt and a lot of fear, because the way he sees it is it involves not just opening himself up wider to those voices that influence, as he feels like he's got to reach out with that same influence, touch other people with the darkness between the stars in order to get into their mind and see things. So I don't think his worst fears have been realized before, but he's just got this fear that like touching people will change them.
and you suffer pain as a result of your powers, and again, they don't always have to, but you can always volunteer to take disadvantage to potentially get the XP off of that with that particular hook. And you could be something that it happens after you've used your powers, maybe not necessarily with the power roll itself. You could say it exhausts you or something like that. The other hook you notice you put here is I'm at the mercy of what? What emotion do you think governs you?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I'd just put all of them in there, but I do think that one fits.
Okay. Oh, I didn't even notice that. So what are those of those that you want? Let's say pick two.
I like the pain. I like that. I like the emotion. So yeah, I like those last two.
Okay.
Those two fit with what I've been thinking about. I think it's the fear. I think that's what boils over in his mind and just cuts through all of the like meditation techniques and prayers and all of the controls that he feels like he's put on his mind. It's the fear that starts creeping in and will eventually bubble over and just make things go crazy.
And so he's tried tattoos, he tried meditation. I assume he's tried medicines, things like that to help him control all of this.
Mm-hmm.
This organization that did the testing on you, do you imagine it was a group that was more religiously bent, or more of a corporatist bent, or more of a secret agency kind of thing? What do you think?
I think it was religiously bent. Like they used science and medical research to do their thing, but it was all because they were trying to follow religious ideals, prophecies, guidelines.
That's probably the Order of the Pariah is probably the one then that would have done it. They have a positive reputation in some circles and not so much in others. And they're certainly the most, how do I put this, regressive of those sort of factions and things. And I think what else I want to ask you about that. About how old, when people look at you, what do they think?
I think it can be hard to tell because he tends to try and cover up and conceal and hide inside his clothing, but I think he's like 25.
And where did he come from before this testing? Like what I mean, does he have memories of that? Was there a previous life?
I think he was really young.
Mm-hmm.
But he has like pastoral memories.
Okay.
An agricultural area, not a lot of big city memories or anything like that.
Okay. That seems reasonable to me. All right, I will come back with you and ask you about those relationship questions in just a bit. Sherry, tell us about your character.
Sure. Her name is Kalaba. She is a scientist. It turns out that there are bounty hunters after her, but for something that she didn't do.
Okay.
And that also that there is a group out there who slandered her good name, and she will have her vengeance. One of the things about her is that she's highly theoretical. She's definitely an academic, but she's been theoretical about things all of her life, and so she has studied a certain amount of martial arts and stuff. So she's actually decent at fighting, but because theoretically that would be something that would help her be better at living on the rough. She had no idea what, essentially this was all, she got these ideas from vids and stuff like that. So anyway, she can fight and she can think, and she's working like hell presently to figure out how to apply things. So even though she knows all about FTL flight and engineering and things like that, she has to read the instruction manuals for the equipment on the ship, and and look things up and stuff like that for how to actually find the things to do and the shortcuts and all of that stuff. It's like finding the pieces is hard for her. Finding the right menu. Because it wasn't something she designed.
And how old?
I think she's relatively young. So let's say 28 or so.
Okay.
What's
What's her family background? Did she get a scholarship from one of the smaller planets, or did she come from one of the Zenithian families? What are you imagining?
I think that she came from one of the smaller planets, and that's the whole thing. While all of her academics, she was always had a brilliant mind, but her sense of how things were done was very like she had no models,
Okay.
Essentially she got her education because she was super talented, but she never had any role models. And certainly when she was at school, academics were all she saw and all that she was encouraged in.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
And what do you think it is that you didn't do that the bounty hunters are after you for?
Well, I think that what happened is she was part of a design team for a new vessel, like a new kind of faster than light vehicle, so something like a ship that was going to be very fast. And what it was is that she had some concerns about some of the design choices, particularly about, since the ships are not just designed for engineering, but also to be pious and to be and usually part of a faith thing. She had actually left the ship to go consult because even though she couldn't place her finger on it, she thought that there was something wrong with that design. Like something felt wrong to her, but she didn't know what it was because it wasn't something she had studied. And the expert on the ship was the one who had designed that and was very like, no, this is how it has to be. And so she had just left the ship in order to kind of try to figure out what was going on. She had gotten leave to go home for personal reasons when it like disappeared. It didn't blow up. It didn't leave in any natural way. It disappeared. And so since she's the remaining one, the funders behind it want her skin.
And are the funders the one that have slandered your good name?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll probably pick out one of the families from amongst the Zenithians that would be the ones that would have the shipyards, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that gives a good sense. And you have jury rig, so you are kind of
Yes.
a little bit more mechanical.
She's been practicing. So this is the thing is that it's why jury rig actually fits, because it has all these kind of strange like fail states. So I think that this would be like highly frustrating to her that she knows how it ought to be, but actually making it be that way is much more difficult than she had any idea. So,
Excellent.
Okay. And then her thing is I did take expertise, which allows me for the things that I know to do things like get a little bit more information on stuff, but also I can share the expertise so that they have advantage going forward on it. So that was, and of course I picked the most important 3 things to have when you're looking for artifacts. So that's engineering, technology, and devices, physics, FTL, travel, and special anomalies, and spirituality, philosophy, wisdom, and the icons. Because she's been studying that ever since that ship.
Okay.
And essentially she's hiding out in this ship, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
she's
absolutely.
Here because she needed to get away.
I like that. That sounds good. We'll come back to you on those relationship questions here. Also, thank you to whoever has reformatted the thing to have the hooks and the relationships in separate areas there. Patrick.
Wait, you don't know it could have been anyone.
Patrick, you're the one who went through and fixed all the fonts on the maps that we did in Legacy. So I know that it was you. I know it was you, Patrick. Stephen, let's come back to Nikos. You've got some example relationship questions on your sheet. And let's have you say them, suggest who you think it is, and we'll confirm with that player and get a sense of that. So what's your first one?
Blank knows what to do when things go wrong, someone to trust. And I was actually thinking the Mystic for this.
Okay. And how does that, what would have made Nikos come to that? Like, okay, this is somebody I can trust. This is someone to rely on. What would have happened to have made you feel that way?
I mean, I think there was one time we were in a situation, we were making a deal with smugglers, and things broke down. They started shooting. We were running, and Kayri he pointed at a garbage chute and said, this way, and somehow he knew this route out of there, and later I found out it was because he had mind read somebody. It's like he just knows things that he has no business knowing, and if there's a crisis, you can count on him to just when I have no idea what to do, he sometimes does.
I like it. And then your other relationship question?
Blank can take a 0G roll without throwing up. Impressive. So I think that's Calabar. I think they impressed me the first time I encountered them, and that's part of the reason why I invited them onto my crew.
They looked like a scientist might be a little more delicate, and then proved to be a lot more steel in her backbone.
Right. Plus she was really good. She was really good at fixing the ship, which is, I mean, I'm okay at tinkering, but I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm not an engineer. I'm the equivalent of a guy who tinkers in his garage.
Okay. Also, Nikos, pronouns he, him? Yes. Okay. All right. I just wanted to confirm on that. Let's come to Kyrie. What's your first relationship question?
Hit the unmute button. Why? Why, internet? Don't you drink that? So Captain Nikos is someone I respect. I hope he feels the same, because I need this crew. I need this ship. I need the safety of not being on my own anymore. And he has just an almost uncanny ability to find these artifacts, these mystical things, and something that we find is going to be the key to helping me control what's going on.
I like that. And the other one?
The other one is Kala.
Kala.
Kala has seen me at my most vulnerable. I'll make sure she never tells anyone what she saw.
What was that? Now I really want to know this.
I think it was like a full-on uncontrolled poltergeist sort of thing. It was crashing furniture and haywire systems and just chaos. And if like crew knows, because I know we're at least getting one more person. If the captain finds out, like, I'm afraid I'll just shift into too much of a liability, like I'll lose this chance, and so she just has to. I'm trying to make her believe that, like, I can control it. I'm working on it. It's not something she needs to worry about. And it's definitely not something she needs to tell anyone.
I like that very much. Okay. And he, him, I see that you've got for Kyrie. How are we
Yep.
saying that?
Kyrie.
Kyrie is right. Okay. All right. Excellent. So let's come to Kala.
Yeah, I think Captain Nikos makes me insecure. I don't know how to interact with him. He's like one of those people like that talks to other people. And that's difficult. And he does it a lot and he seems really good at it. And sometimes he talks to me and it's like he knows all the things that the person is going to say next. And yeah, confusing, very confusing.
Okay.
I think,
And sometimes we'll be talking to government officials, and I'll just say something that's completely not true, and it's like, how did he even think of that?
exactly. And I think one time I almost went to correct you and you put your hand out and silenced me immediately. So I had this thing that somehow you have some sense of what she's going to say, what I'm going to say next. So yeah, she's a little spooked by you. Has some sort of supernatural powers of social stuff. So that was what I was thinking.
Okay.
And then for Kyrie, I think that he's so beautiful. And that he'd never look my way. Like when he's always talking to me, he's trying to get me to do something. But he clearly doesn't see me as a person. And yeah, and I think like it's like because she can tell that the patterns that are on his skin and stuff, they're significant. They're like repeated over and over in a lot of meaningful symbolic work and artwork, but she can't put her finger on what element it is. It's like something that is just, it's a meta concept. And so she's trying to think about that. But anyway, whenever she does, she gets all kind of embarrassed. So I don't know what it is.
I like that. I like that very much. All right, that gives us some things to work with. We're going to take about a 7-minute break because it'll take us to about 20 after, and then we will come back and we'll throw us into something. So let's do that. We're going to be a few more minutes on the break. During the break, Sherry got a call, and her mother gets agitated from time to time, and so she is talking with her mother to make her mother unagitated. So I apologize for that, but we'll just give her a few more minutes.
That's fine.
There's one sort of mechanical question I want to ask you, Stephen. Are you imagining a ship that can land on planet, or a ship that you have like a little skiff to take down to the planet?
I think either one works.
Okay.
I want to be able to get to the planet, but I think maybe the skiff.
Okay. Gives you a little shuttlecraft to head down with. Patrick, how do you think you got hooked up with the captain?
I think it was like convergent mystery hunting. Like we both found the same lost site at like the same time. This location that had been had been lost for like decades or a century or more, and we both stumbled on it at the same time, and like I couldn't not see that as a sign.
Right. Yeah. I think it was actually a three-way standoff. And it's like the two of us joined forces and grabbed the artifact. It's like we'll argue about it later.
Nice. I like that.
One of the interesting things to talk about and think about the sort of context of what artifact hunting involves is there's definitely a set of precursor civilizations. It's uncertain that predate humanity. They're definitely the ones that built the gates, and the gates are the method for going through. When you travel between systems, you have to put yourself into a cryo sleep to be able to go through and keep your sanity intact. So there are things scattered across the systems here. Also, we've got two groups of people. We've got the Zenithians, and that's their name for the ship, the Zenith, and the First Comers. And the background for all of this is that a couple of colony ships took off, the Zenith and another one. The other one vanished. Zenith took off, and after a very long time, hundreds of years in cryosleep, arrived here, only to find that in the meantime, the portals had been discovered. And so the First Comers are settlers from from Earth, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, that came and spread out throughout this systems using the portals. The Zenithians arrived about 60 years ago, and that was in the immediate wake of something called the Portal Wars. There used to be a lot more systems you could go to and a lot more portals. However, there was a massive inter-system war, and some portals were destroyed. Some portals were rendered non-functional, and systems that used to be around that people could go to weren't able to. And so that's maybe 100 years ago that happened. And the Zenith arrived in orbit of the main planet, what is now the main planet of the whole thing. There was a split between the two sides, and some went planet side, and some rebuilt the ship to be Coriolis, which is the main space station. That it's massive, and kind of a split between that and the planet side authority. The Zenithians reorganized people and sort of pushed things forward. So it's the Zenithians are around. They've only been here 60 years, so that's like 3 generations. But they've accumulated a great deal of power in that time. So other things that are artifacts are old things from the first comers, because there've been hundreds of years of first comer civilizations on the various planets. Artifacts maybe suggesting systems that have been lost, all of that kind of stuff. Those are all things that people are looking for. Nikos, how seriously do you think you take the worship of the icons?
I think I'm not a believer myself, but I respect believers.
So so that's definitely sort of a lean that some of the Zenithians have made to whereas for most people the icons are present, and it's just taken for granted that faith is there. There are more Zenithians that or people that have been, cultures and things have been under Zenithian influence that have seen it more as an organizing principle and that kind of thing. So that makes sense. What about for you, Kyrie?
I think Kyrie definitely remembers being raised in the icon tradition, but I think at this point in his life he has a more pragmatic relationship with religion. He does pray to the icons, but in that way of like, he knows that certain rituals, certain meditations, certain like vocal cues, sound cues will help him stabilize or control things. But I think as far as like actual faith or veneration, he would have more for like the emissaries or something that he could put concrete faith in, like this is a being or a force that knows and could do so much more than we can, and surely they could be the ones to help me. It's just, getting personal help from an emissary is sort of hard.
And how do you feel about this? I mean, do you believe what these emissaries, this figure that has arrived on the council that claims to be one of the icons, claims to be the judge? Do you think you believe that, or how do you feel about that? Sorry, hang on 1 second here. Sherry has the phone. All right, she's picked up. We'll let her deal with that.
So again, I think it's a mix of faith and philosophy. I think he believes that the emissary is something greater than us, and the icons are sort of like societal memes or like archetypes that it's slotting into. So do I believe it's the judge as in the icon come to life? Not really. But I think that term suffices as well as any.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think Nikos thinks that this is a scam.
All right.
He doesn't say so. He doesn't say so out loud. Mostly, it's just he's a bit of a scamster himself, and he recognizes a fellow practitioner.
Okay. Sherry, everything's squared?
For the moment.
Do we need to cut short, or we?
No, we're
okay.
good.
All right. I just want to make sure. So your other two compatriots are skeptics when it comes to the icons. Certainly, Kyrie may be a little bit more thinking that they have a little more importance. What does Kala think?
She has a newfound obsession to understand them. I think she's searching for that meaning to understand what went wrong with that ship, and probably secondarily now to understand what's going on with Kyrie. And so I would say that she's sort of in the fervent stage of discovery, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say? When someone's first converted, they're the most.
Okay.
That's what she is right now.
All right. Like she's always had the icons, but now it's in her life, but now she's actually started to think about them.
It has significance, Lowell.
Okay.
Significance.
All right. So we take up with sort of you in mission. We'll kind of do this in medias res to that. But because this is a job, what I would like Nikos to do, Nikos has a sort of job finding move. Let's have you go ahead and roll your Pursuvian, and we'll assume that that's already been set up in play to give you that hold that you can use.
Okay, and do we have a role for your party?
Yes, it is listed on the basic moves tab, and I will grab it right here. It is copy, paste. There we go. Badly ample raccoon. Don't ask me why.
Okay, that is an 11.
That is an 11. So you have 2 leads that you can spend to ask those questions, or you can spend an extra lead to answer it yourself. And they've got that list there. So the job you were given is this. There is a system called Suruke. It's a ways out. They have just been opening up some development there. It has some new mineral resources that people have been looking into. The planet itself has some weird gravatic issues, gravity fluctuations, things like that they're not sure is entirely natural, or is some sort of artifact from precursor days or something. But recently they've moved a very basic space station into there. They've started to do some industrial exploitation of the planet. There are some natives, apparently some humanoid natives, but also it has its own species. And again, it's not really talked about all that much, but there are other alien species within the Coriolis setting that are kind of, people keep a kind of a distance from. Some of them go out into space, but none of them have like their own spacefaring technology. But here's the thing: in the Suruke system, you would have talked to somebody on one of the major stations, would have spoken with you. Next time we'll figure out who your patrons are and the ship name and all of that kind of stuff. But for the moment, they told you that there was a group of archaeologists, and the air quotes, very deliberate archaeologists, that went in to follow a lead up on Suruke. And what has gotten back message wise to Coriolis and to the fixer that's talking to you is some of the people they're not sure the exact reason, but some of the people got left behind and claim to have some good stuff, some good artifacts that they're willing to split if somebody can come and extract them from the situation there. And we're gonna take up with you in system, and we will flash back to any kind of prep or things like that. Does that seem fair?
Sure.
Okay. So you're in the Suruke system. The planet is Suruke 3, third rock from the sun there. And when you arrive in system and at the gate there and start your journey in orbit, heading towards the planet, takes a few hours, and you will get a system-wide broadcast that essentially says to all travelers, Suruke 3 is closed for outside contact. Suruke 3 is closed for outside contact. If you are in system inbound and need assistance, come to Tirgatau Station and you will be given further information. And that's a little unusual. So how do you want to play this, Nikos?
Alva, do you think we can take advantage of the gravitational anomalies in this system to do a stealth approach?
That's a fine question. I've been waiting to get close enough to actually take a look at those babies. Let's see what's going on.
So you want to kind of take the ship in a little, run a little quiet to get close enough to do a full stealth thing? Does that seem reasonable, Nikos? I think that's going to be pretty easy. Now we're going to look here at the exploration moves for you, Sherry. You've got a couple of ways to do this. I think probably share expertise. The top move on that is probably the one we're going to be looking at, right?
Yep.
Also, I'll point out that they've got a spout technobabble move. It doesn't do anything, but it gives you some example words. I'll just point that out.
Okay.
So let's have you roll with calculating.
Okay. Let's see how this goes. My calculating is my course, my best thing. So, sorry, every time I have to relearn which box goes to the pips. Okay. So let's see here. Those ones. Oh, okay. I guess they rolled. And I got 2.
So your total is a 2?
My total is a 4.
Total is a 4.
They came out as snake eyes. Man, it's hostile dice.
So the good news is you get to mark XP. Look at that, the first XP of the session. The bad news is, as you are coming in and kind of checking that out, you will realize that the issue with the gravity waves is going to make it difficult to stealth in. But additionally, it has messed with your sensors, and you can see that there is a Chernova family, essentially industrial ship that is pretty close by that didn't show up on your sensors and is now hailing you. So right now you're picking up this hail from essentially the corporation that has the exploitation rights for the planet, the ship relatively nearby. What do you want to do, Nikos?
I think the stealth approach is no longer viable. So I will answer the hail.
And this efficient-looking woman, she's got the Chernova sort of family crest and outfit pops up on the small monitor there, and she says, "Greetings, Captain. I don't know if you've already picked up the words or if the gravitations have interfered with the signals, but currently Saruke 3 is closed. I hope that is not your destination."
Well, it actually was. We have a contract to pick up a load of Saruke jelly fruit, and what exactly is the issue, Captain?
She kind of pauses there, and she says, "There's some planet-side issues that are going on that I can't reasonably discuss here, but Chernova has closed the system to close the planet for the moment. I'm sure that if you come back in a couple of months, everything will be in order at that point."
I mean, Captain, I'm sure you know the growing season of Saruke and jelly fruit. In a couple of months, there won't be any left to pick up.
She says, "Not my authority. I suggest you take it up if you need to refuel and deal with officials. You deal with them on Tergatau." And she cuts the contact.
Well, let's set a course for Tergatau. And Kala, if you can figure out any way to jam their sensors so that we can get to the planet without being blown out of the sky, that would be an excellent idea.
Yes, Captain.
So you will fly into Tirgatau. There are a couple more Chernova like family industrial ships there, but there's also a Chernova, essentially the for a better term, a military ship there, like a security and enforcement ship, which it's a little unusual, and you can see that the drop bays for like some planet side flyers are empty. Like they've clearly dropped some people down below. Like there's something going on, something that they are securing right now. But you can land. Turgatau gives you the basic signals. They do that modest docking charge rather than anything big, because apparently they want to turn people around quickly and get them out of system. And when you disembark onto the station, it is one of those stations that is completely prefab. It smells prefab. It still has that metal smell to it. And all of the corridors are incredibly basic metal and glass and so on. There's no ornamentation put up yet. There are spaces where you can see that they have not finished certain modules on the station. But you'll be met by one of the station handlers who will introduce themselves as Rubati. And he will say, Captain Jemison?
Yes.
I am Rubati. I have been assigned by the station to handle your affairs. Why don't I take you down to the mess deck, and I can explain the situation, and we can make arrangements for your ship to be refueled and so on.
That would be fine. You noticed that our docking was a little bumpy. Some of our drive coils have gotten misaligned, so we are going to need a little time to recalibrate them before we leave the station.
Let's have you manipulate.
That's an 11.
That is 11. Absolutely understand. He clearly wants to accommodate you to prevent you from asking too many questions. And he's like, absolutely, we will. I don't know. We have some on-station sleeping quarters. They are Spartan, but you can use those if you don't want to be on ship. I will contact one of the station engineers to consult with you.
Oh, my crew can handle the calibration themselves.
Excellent.
They're very touchy about having other people touch their
No, I perfectly understand. It is most understandable. And rather than any kind of elevator, you actually have to walk downstairs, down a couple of levels. It's barbaric. And into this.
Actually feels kind of homey.
And you walk down into this mess hall. There are some of the other station workers who are there. They are, most of them are in Chernova jumpsuits. There are a few that aren't. They look like they're sitting apart from the Chernova people. And there's some food being served, that very basic stuff. Though the smell, the horrible smell of jelly fruit does waft through here. Like, that's clearly used. It is not a great smell, but it tastes good, but it smells like feet, I think is the problem that it has. And Rubati will have you sit down and will say, if you'd like, I can have some food brought to you. At the very least, allow me to have cha brought for you.
That would be very kind. That would be very kind. I would enjoy some cha. But what I'm most curious about is the reason the planet has been closed. This is rather unusual, isn't it?
There have been some gravatic storms that have created a set of anomalies that have made travel dangerous. And so, as the owner of record for the exploration on this planet, Chernova has opted, in the interests of safety, to close the planet. It sounds like she's said this line many times already.
I see. And I mean, we would be perfectly willing to sign any waivers you might require. That's.
Well, as I understood from the note that I had from the captain of the industrial ship, that you have a contract to pick up a certain amount of jelly fruit.
Yes. Our client is very particular. He wants jelly fruit from a particular plantation, and he expects us to inspect the fruit personally. You understand how eccentric some of these rich families can be.
And she says, I certainly understand. And then she says something that shocks you. Chernova will recompense you for the cost of the contract, whatever they are paying you. We will pay for that and take care of that. So you will go away without a loss.
Without a monetary loss, but our reputation, sir, our reputation.
Let me turn to Patrick. What are you up to?
So this whole thing is super hinky. There's something up here. I think Kyrie has just been like jittering deeper and deeper inside of his hood as we've gone through the station. And as we're like here and sort of stable across from where the captain's it's her, right?
The body that you're speaking to, this ship person is a man.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, as we're speaking to him, I'm trying to dig into his mind and use the distraction of like him trying to work around the captain to hopefully slip in.
Absolutely. Let's have you roll Mind Spike.
Mind Spike.
And so you'll discharge that move, which means you need to take a bit to recover it. And
is there a particular process for getting it back, or just fictionally resetting, or what?
When you're out of direct danger, you can roll a recovery.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be later. But it's a volatile roll.
Yeah.
All my stuff is a volatile roll. Let's see. You guys. Oh, wow. That's a 12.
So you get 2 hold.
So yeah, I think the first hold would be as he's talking about like this compensation and dealing with us here on the ship. What does he intend to do? And it is either answer truthfully or take to harm.
Oh, definitely will answer truthfully. I think you will realize that body would like to get you taken care of and get you out of here. They need no witnesses because right now they're engaged in a gunfight. Like there's a military action going on. Looks like one of the local populations, and not the like the natives, but unexpectedly a group of like religious pilgrims that they had not counted on, have started a guerrilla campaign against their Chonova forces there and have been attacking the production sites. And they have summoned in some people to deal with this quietly before word gets out about this. And they are trying to, raise them to the ground without any witnesses.
Oh, wow.
And your second hold?
Yeah. How could I get him to? What would it take to get us down to that planet?
I think the single action would be to, because like any corporate person, at root, this person is venal and corrupt. And I think you could suggest to them that a bribe of some kind. It would cost a bit, but maybe that kind of thing to let you through. Though that's money. Does that seem like a fair answer?
Yeah, and just as a meta follow-up question. Do we have money? I don't have money, I don't think.
I don't think you have that much money.
Ah,
Right. However, he did just offer us a large payment to go away, and
I don't think we can offer him his bribe back.
right. I mean, what I think that we have the basis of a possible deal. And that I mean, I'm going to quietly suggest this payment that he's offering. This would be very generous. I mean, it would be obviously would make a larger profit than if we actually completed our contract, but it would damage our reputation. But I mean, if he were to record that a payment had been made and simply look the other way while we slipped down to the planet and got the fruit, I mean, we could preserve our reputation for completing difficult jobs. As far as the corporation would be concerned, he would have handled the situation with delicacy and grace, and I mean, he would have a small he would have a small amount of unaccounted for funds which he could direct. I'm sure the station has urgent needs, which there's always some way to use unallocated funds, isn't there?
Let's have you roll manipulate.
That's a 12.
And Rubati stops and has a conversation, and he says, I cannot assist you in going to the planet. I cannot do anything on that end. But I will certainly look the other way and record that you are on the station currently for the repairs to your ship.
That would be very helpful, and possibly if you could provide us with an introduction to some of the that was a military ship.
He says, he raises his hand like that. That's clearly like he doesn't even want to get mixed up with them.
Yeah, or just instruct us what areas of the station we should avoid in order not to encounter these military personnel.
And he looks down, and you see him kind of send over. You're going to be moving around here. Let me send you a map of the station, and kind of sends that over with some areas sort of quickly marked to avoid. And he also says, you're going to want to be careful with your ship when you work the coils, because sometimes there's some interference waves from our ship's sensors. We use this model of sensory equipment. So you're going to want to be careful with that.
Oh, yes. We certainly wouldn't want to do anything that would cause an alarming anomaly on the military sensors.
Well, I will go ahead and make arrangements for you to be paid for the value of your cargo.
That is very, very. I am impressed with the professionalism you've shown.
It is my pleasure. We'll see to those matters, and hopefully I will speak with you again.
Indeed. I hope our stay will be a short but profitable one.
And he stands up and bows, gestures to the cha that has been presented for you. there's probably some like unleavened bread and kind of a synthesized dipping sauce there. And he says, I will go into that, and walks away.
Okay, yeah, and I pass over the technical specifications to Kala. I assume they're looking at them while I sip my cha. And
it is that kind of cha that you can taste that it's that kind of bulk scent beans that have been freeze dried and then brought here and then run through water that's been gone through the reclamation center a couple times, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It tastes like metal.
How do we know we can trust him? I mean, what's to stop him from just running off and alerting some military ship that we're going to be heading down? He knows right where we're going now.
Money. If we're caught, then how will he account for the funds?
Is that enough, though? I mean, he looked scared of those military people.
Yes, he looks. He is frightened, but for that very reason, he will do his best to see that we are not caught.
Fine.
Yeah,
Fine, I guess.
He won't stick his neck out for us, but
just get this job over with.
Right, Kala, can you do anything with that sensor data?
Yes. And I knew it was these sensors, by the way, when I came onto the station. Okay. So yeah, with knowledge of what system it is and exactly what kind of things it's capable of, I should be able to jury rig a useful jammer. I guess jury rig would be it, right?
Yeah, I like jury rig. Let's use your moves for it.
Yeah, because it's terrible. It's a terrible thing to do. So, but it is right up my alley. So
it is.
All right. Oh, those dice were so unkind. I'm gonna roll the last two. Okay, so that's a 10.
That is a 10. Oh yeah, you know exactly what this thing is. If you go back to the ship, you can strip out a few of the non-essential systems, like the med bay, things like that, and put this together and get a jammer, not for your big ship, but to cover your skiff.
Yeah, I don't even consult with them. I just get that all done, and I'm like, okay, skiff's ready to go.
Patrick, since you have downtime in between scenes, I don't even think you need to roll. You can clear that mind spike.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And I've been assuming that we know the location of these people that we've been sent to extract, and that they're near this jelly fruit plantation that I was talking about.
Okay, absolutely. You have the coordinates. You have the jelly fruit plantation there, and yeah, you've got the locale. So if you want, you can try to wait and then drop quiet off your ship and head down. You won't be picked up on electronic sensors. There's just the smallest chance that somebody might get a visual on you.
Yeah, and I think we timed the launch so that we land during the night.
Okay. In that case, I would like you to keep your cool.
And you roll with advantage.
Okay, so that's...
Because that's the one thing I can do.
Okay. What was my... yeah, so I'm stalwart 0. Okay, that's... That's a 12. I'm getting insane rolls this session.
That is crazy. So we see you wait until the sun is blocked by the planet there as the station comes around. You wait for the night side to drop, and then it's a quiet drop. You don't hit any thrusters, and you just let it fall, catch into the gravity well, get into the cloud cover of the planet before you hit any kind of thing. There is this weird drift down, but then start free falling. The sensor jammer is up, and you will catch a gravity wave, and you will begin to head down, sail down towards this site, keeping in with the planet to make sure nothing shows up anomalous. And we see you scorch through that, and eventually we see you going over big tall tree jungles through here. In a lot of the areas, some water in some other areas. You'll see that in a lot of space on the planet. There does seem to be like a lot of ground cover fog and things like that. You've heard that in some places the gravity actually keeps these fog banks, because they have a little bit of metallic atmospheric things. It actually keeps these massive fog banks in place in different areas. But as you come down kind of over the hills, and imagine we're making a pass over the woods of Endor in some ways, you will see that the location that you're heading towards, that plantation and the excavation is supposed to be, that's where they went to get extricated, was that place. There's definitely smoke rising in the air. And as you kind of do a quick quiet pass by, you can see that the smoldering remains of one of these jelly fruit plantations, the one you were heading towards, is there. You guess maybe torched a day ago.
What kind of torching?
Would you like to scope it out?
Sure.
Just because I'm pointing us to the move, so we can do that.
So
you roll that with calculating.
Okay. So that gives me an 8.
Okay, so you get one question from scope it out.
And let's see here. Let me check real quick. So I know technology kind of stuff. So I'm looking to see if this is any of the standard, how do you say, burn technologies that were used, or if it's old schooly. So
it looks a little more primitive.
Okay.
You would get a sense, and let's do this as the what happened here recently kind of thing.
exactly.
You think that this is a guerrilla attack. They mentioned the order, and this definitely has that feel, rather than, it's not a military strike. It's definitely not the Chernova groups having come through here, because there would be a lot more damage. Yeah, you get that sense that it got hit by a guerrilla strike.
And does it look like the Chernova military has been through then to clean up after this, like to come in and chase out who was here, or is this a place they haven't gotten to yet?
Okay, I'll include that as part of the question. I think you don't see any evidence that the Chernova military are on site right now.
Interesting. They're probably heading here, is what I will say.
Yeah.
And we have an idea what those pilgrims were after. So whatever you want to do, Captain. No idea if our boys are down there.
Yeah, I think we need to land and check out the site, see if anybody is still there, or if there's any indication of where they went.
kind of settle down. Skiff comes down. What does the skiff look like, do you imagine? Is it hard lines? Is it rounded edges? Is it decorated in a particular way?
I think it's sort of boxy, like the original series Star Trek shuttles.
Except it has
Kind
beautiful,
of,
yeah.
yeah, kind of. It kind of looks like a junk heap.
Okay.
Compared to most skiffs, it's functional but ugly.
You were going to add a decorative element, Cherry?
Yeah, I think that it does have like the ceramic tiles and that with the mosaics on it, but they are a little worse for wear, and
Like
that is
there's
saddening.
spots where the mosaic pieces are gone, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, every time she walks past it, she feels a little regretful.
I think you all will land, step out of the ship. There is a ground fog. It's kind of bluish tinged. You know that you can breathe here, but you probably want to breathe your mask because there is a certain amount of metallics in the atmosphere that you don't want to long term be exposed to. And that ground fog is kind of mixed with the sort of last bits of the smoke. And as you walk over towards the plantation very carefully, we will get that same Star Wars sting of when they come upon the flaming bodies of Aunt Beru and so on. As you can see that there are a number of corpses here. And how do you want to approach this? Let's Patrick, what does Kyrie do in a situation like this?
Again, I think he's just been like super nervous since we landed. He definitely went for the breathing mask option, any sort of safety against this, and he's got his hood pulled down. And I think just out of the darkness of it, all you can sort of see is his eyes, which catch the light and sometimes seem to glow. And it's like they're glowing now as can I try staring into the dark?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, absolutely. I love it when players stare into the dark.
So yeah, I want to open my mind to what happened here and figure out why this place was assaulted, particularly because this is where we're coming.
Let's have you roll plus weird.
And I think this definitely goes into my hook of with the mercy of my fear and my struggle against its impulses.
Absolutely. Roll with disadvantage.
What? Oh, that's terrible. Okay, so those three. Still pretty good. Wow, that's still a 10.
What? Well, the bad news is you don't get any XP.
Do I not get XP for the hook?
You only get XP. Here's the trick: is when you use the hook, you get to roll with disadvantage, which means you're more likely.
Oh,
I know. I'm well aware.
Okay.
And we may modify that later on because it is not my favorite rule.
Discussions for the future. All
Yes.
right, cool though. He's just like he's terrified. He started shaking, and let's see, the move, blah blah blah, is over here. Shown dark visions that lend you insight. Ask the dark one question, and the dark will answer.
And this is there's no list of questions.
Yeah. It's I think it's that. Why was this place attacked in particular?
I think we will have that vision as you kind of stare at it, and we probably can see that sort of rolling back of the smoke and fog and things like that. And we will roll back, and you will see what are clearly these archaeologists that you're here to extract. And again, archaeologists that you're here to extract, and they are clearly have paid some money and they're hiding out here. Like you can see, they've taken refuge here. They're clearly worried. They know that something is up. And then you will see these people in marks of the icons and things like that. Unusual looking. They're slightly biosculpted, which is very unusual and not regarded particularly well in some spaces. But this group comes in and raids the place. And of the three archaeologists, two of them survive. And it's very clear that they were here for them. Like you see them dragging them away. Essentially, they have the bags that the archaeologists had. They've slung them over their shoulders and they are dragging them back somewhere.
What is it that tells me that they're biosculpted? Like, what does that look like?
Like, I imagine you see that they don't have any kind of rebreather masks or anything here. But you do see they have probably some gills or things in here that say to you that those are implanted things, and not like when you've seen people who've gotten implants, or bionics or things like that, where you can see the scar stuff. Like, it looks natural. Their limbs are maybe just like 2 or 3 inches too long. It's odd. And they're all have a relative look like that. And they frog march these two people off into the jungle woods.
Then yeah, I think Kyrie holds up at the sort of edge of the trees moving into the clearing of this place.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Oh yeah, you do have a question for me, don't you? Sorry.
Yeah. So what faint hope does your character cling to? What is it that actually is that last little bit of hope that you're hanging on to that we can crush later? But tell me, what is it?
I mean, I think the hope that's driving him forward here is the hope that keeps driving him forward with Nikos and the crew, is that this will be the one. This will be the one that gives me that answer. This will be the one that cracks the code of how I can finally understand what's going on inside.
That sounds good. I like that. Let's come back to our captain. I assume you inform him of the matters?
Yeah, I say this wasn't some guerrilla strike. This wasn't part of some uprising they're trying to put down. They came here specifically for our contacts.
Right. And there's one of the bodies is one of the people we're hired to extract. So
yep.
I'm going to load the body onto the shuttle, and I'm going to spend one of my holds to ask a question, because they're clearly connected to this whole mission.
Sure. So you spent one of the 2 hold to set this place here near the thing, and then what is your question that you want to use with this other hold?
What's my next best step to finish the job? What indication is there on the body of how I can find the others?
I think that you've got this guy's communicator. One of the things is communicators tend to be short range. Like, all of you have communicators, and they have a range of like a couple of kilometers, not far. Actual sort of gear communicators, can reach to the orbit and things like that. But the standard stuff you have, because there's no satellites or anything, is very small. And usually, like the three of you have communicators that are linked to one another. This guy has a communicator that's linked to the communicators of the other two, which you can use to follow them back.
That sounds perfect.
All right, I think we're actually going to stop here a little early, but I think I want to stop here since we kind of got a mission set up. We'll bring Peter in next time and kind of follow up, and it'll give me a chance to kind of plan out where we're at. Does that seem reasonable, everybody?
Yeah. Quick question, Lowell.
Yeah.
Does this, like getting here and finding that someone got in here and killed these people and burned it for us, that count as suffering frustration, disappointment, or emotional hurt to give me
I
a
would
darkness?
I will say yes.
Cool. Then I'll have one for next time.
We will do, let me look at the end of session things here. If I can find that little thing here. Okay. So for participating, everybody's going to mark an XP. This takes the place of voting for MVPs at the table. And here are the questions. Ask the following questions and answer them as a group. Did you complete a mission or contract? I don't think so yet. Did you learn something new or important about the universe?
Yeah, there's this group of like icon followers that are on the same mission we are.
Okay, so mark yourself an XP, everybody. And did you make a new enemy or thwart an existing enemy? I'm going to say
I think
yes.
the Chernova, yeah.
Yeah, you put yourself in harm's way on this, so I'm going to give you another XP. And when you get 5 XP, you can erase them to get a new move, to gain an additional gear slot, to upgrade one of your approaches. You can upgrade those each once.
Can you explain the gear a little bit? That's one of the things that confused me on the sheet.
Oh yeah, let me grab the book. So you have 3 slots for your gear, and I think it plays a little bit like Blades in Dark, in that you set your gear for your mission, and then in between things you can go and reset your gear, like you can swap it around. But you do have to choose it in advance once you go out into the field. And you can start with 3 things. Anything that has a T by it is a trinket, and doesn't count towards that. You always have that.
Gotcha. So you said we choose stuff before we go out?
Yeah, you would choose stuff before you go out. And
Gotcha.
then you can, and then when you like go back to the ship or go back to the base, you can swap those things around.
Gotcha.
The accelerated rifle is a sniper rifle. The grape rifle is a shotgun. Any other questions? We will be playing in 2 weeks. We're doing 3 sessions here in October, but we're skipping next week because we have obligations. Does that seem reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to stop this live stream.